Time for the best of Beaver County. For the next 30 minutes, you're going to learn about unique and interesting people in Beaver County. You can also watch live on Facebook at WBVP-WMVA. The best of Beaver County is brought to you by St. Barnabas. Here is your host, Frank Sparks.
And good morning and welcome into the best of Beaver County. For this week, it is April the 16th of 2016. This week, we're going to learn about something that's pretty cool that's going to be happening. As America's celebrating 250 this year, there's going to be a lot of different events that are happening and different things. And we're going to talk today about some of those events that are happening that are going to be locally here in Beaver County. And one of those
Sarah. How are you?
major things, hang on, let me get rid of
I'm
that.
really
There we
stressed
go.
out, and
is going to involve Fort McIntosh and also the National Daughters of the American Revolution. And our guest this morning is Judee and Tom Rooney. Good morning, guys.
Good morning. Thanks for having us.
Appreciate you guys coming in today to talk a little bit about this. So, Judee, why don't you tell us first off a little bit about the National Society of the Daughters of the American Revolution?
Okay, I will do that. We were founded in Washington, D.C. on October 11th of 1890, and membership is for any women over 18 years of age, regardless of race, religion, or ethnic background, who can prove descendant from a patriot of the American Revolution. It's basically a genealogy society, and for more information about the DAR, you can check out the website dar.org.
So how did you become part of the Daughters of the American Revolution?
Well, that's interesting. I had my first grandchild back in 2009, and I decided that I needed to tell the story of his family history. And I knew I had a Revolutionary War patriot in my family, and I said, okay, what do I do? And one of my cousins said, well, I belong to the DAR. If you want to get in, I'll help you get in. And that's how I got established in 2014 as a member.
Okay. And where have you gone since then?
Where have I gone?
Yeah. Well, throughout the throughout the DAR, how have you progressed along?
Oh, I progressed slowly. I actually was in another chapter before the Fort McIntosh chapter, and it was a distance away from where I lived, and I really couldn't get involved. And then I found out that I had friends and cousins in the Fort McIntosh chapter through the genealogy and talking to different women at different district events. And I said, well, geez, why am I not in the Fort McIntosh chapter if I have all this family connection here? Mm-hmm. So I must be related to at least 6 women in the Fort McIntosh chapter.
Oh, that's cool.
So that's how I ended up here. And then I have progressed as the chairperson of the America 250 committee, which I was asked about a year after I joined this this group here at Fort McIntosh. And I'm now the librarian, so I'm on the board of the Fort McIntosh chapter.
Okay.
So that's where I've progressed to.
Wow. All right. So tell us a little bit about the Fort McIntosh DAR.
The Fort McIntosh DAR was founded in March of 19th of 1904 in Beaver. We are the chapter that serves all of Beaver County and part of Lawrence County up to Newcastle. We have members from Newcastle. And we have about 110 members right at the moment. And overall, the DAR has about 190,000 members. So we're a moderate-sized chapter. Our name comes from General Lackland McIntosh. General McIntosh is quite an interesting character. He was a general, he's from Georgia, and had a little political problem with the constituents of Georgia. And his friend was George Washington, and George Washington said, well, let me help you out. You can be the Western Division Director of the Continental Army. So he was stationed to Fort Pitt. And while at Fort Pitt, he knew that the British had the stronghold in Detroit and said, well, we'll build forts along the path to Detroit to help us, infuriate the British, and maybe they'll stay away from Western Pennsylvania and the Western United, well, what wasn't the United States then, but the Western frontier. So he built Fort McIntosh in 1778, and the chapter took his name to be the...
So originally when the fort was built, it originally was named Fort McIntosh
Oh,
originally
yeah, he
as well?
named it after himself.
Oh, of course.
Of course.
Why wouldn't he, right?
Yeah, he was an arrogant sort of gentleman.
Gotcha.
He didn't last too long here. He was here probably, what would you say, about 2 years, maybe at the most. But he built the fort, like I said, in 1778, and the fort went on to be the home of the 1st Regiment, and Josiah Hammer was the commander of the fort then when they had the first standing army of the United States. So that's a big thing that happened at Fort McIntosh. And at the Treaty of Fort McIntosh is another big thing, which helped the expansion into Ohio from the, it was a treaty with the Native Americans. It helped with expansion into Ohio.
So how has Fort McIntosh lasted all these years? You know what I mean? Because a lot of times you'll know a fort was there, but it doesn't have the publicity and the view that, you know, a lot of people know about Fort McIntosh and Beaver.
Well, I think it's been a lot of people who, know the history and want to keep the history alive, and that includes the DAR and the Sons of the American Revolution, the SAR, and they've kept an interest in it. And I think the town of Beaver has kept an interest in being, the fort that was recognized as the first standing army home, I should say, not site, and the Treaty of Fort McIntosh.
So moving forward, how are we going to highlight more what went on at Fort McIntosh and things like that? How's the Heritage going to continue to do that throughout? As you guys said, you guys are one of the first affiliates to jump on board with the Heritage Foundation and celebrate the 250.
Well, you're taking me off guard here in a second. The Heritage Foundation is a different foundation from what we are. Okay. What we're doing to keep the spirit alive for America 250 is many different projects that we started within our own little group. Okay. And we have committees to do different things. And the America 250 committee was designed to bring to the forefront, something that had to do with the area and 250 years ago in 1776. And that's when we decided to go with something that our name was Fort McIntosh chapter. So we decided to, stay with that.
Yeah, so we started working on this 2 years ago, Frank.
Okay.
It took that long. I'm old enough to remember America's, 1976, right? And we know that it would take an awful lot of work to do that. So what Judee's group wanted to do was produce these videos for middle schoolers because, they want to make sure that the history of Fort McIntosh is never forgotten. And a shout out to Mark Miner at the Beaver Heritage Foundation because they're working on a new master plan for Fort McIntosh, which is really exciting, and we will be working with them on that. But these videos, we're going to do the preview, but actually, if you go to the Fort McIntosh YouTube channel, they're already up.
Oh, but, giving us a secret away, huh?
Yeah, we have a channel, the Fort McIntosh NSDAR is the name of the YouTube channel.
So we did a partnership with Robert Morris University. Mm-hmm. They're actually finishing the one video they did, and then Judee's group came up with the ideas to do a series of them, a total of 5, I think,
we
Judee,
did
right? Yeah.
5, yes.
Right. Okay. And they cover everything from, Indian life and the tradesmen and the famous dig that they did.
The archaeological dig of 1976 for the bicentennial.
Mm-hmm. Right. And we found a former retired county commissioner from Washington County, Bracken Burns. He's our General McIntosh. So he's a part-time thespian, does Little Lake Theater and stuff like that. So he's if you see the videos, you'll see him sort of coming in and out. So the release party, coming up on the 14th is more of a celebration.
Okay.
But everyone's invited. And
it's May 14th.
Right.
Okay. Where's it going to be at?
At the Beaver Carnegie Library in Beaver Falls, and it's from 4 to 7.
So what are we going to see, like, through the series of videos? Take us through a little bit of each video, what's going to happen.
Okay, well, the dig was the first one we did, and it was sort of a learning curve for us because we really had no knowledge of how to make a video. Mm-hmm. And basically what it is General McIntosh, who is portrayed by this actor, and he is throughout every video we did. He goes into the museum, the Beaver Area Heritage Museum, and the Little Beaver Museum in Darlington, and goes through some of the artifacts that were found during the archaeological dig of 1976. And Phil Fitzgibbons, the professor from Franciscan University, was one of the students from Pitt who was there during the dig one summer he spent there with it. And so he had some credibility in what we were being shown. So between the two of them, they went through some of the background of Fort McIntosh and the soldier's life and what was found in the
Were there
dig.
a lot of artifacts found in 76?
Oh, yes, a lot of artifacts
After all those
were
years?
found.
Wow.
Oh, yes. And, they are doing work on Mark Miner is doing a lot. He has a lot of in-kind work being done in categorizing and cataloging these artifacts for the public to see.
Yeah, shout out to the Michael Baker Corporation.
Michael Baker was
really
the one
helpful,
doing in kind for this.
I think we're sitting in their old building.
You are.
Said,
This is the accounting department's where you're sitting.
We are.
Okay. Yeah. So.
Okay, so that's the dig.
Okay.
Now the other ones are the life in the times of Fort McIntosh in 1778, basically, and we used Fort McIntosh Day. Brenda Applegate is one of the women who is on our committee for DAR committee for America 250. And she was a wealth of information for us and Roger Applegate on the history of Fort McIntosh. Well, she helps to orchestrate the reenactors who come in for Fort McIntosh Day, which is in September each year. So for the last 2 years, we've been there taking videos. Last year, General McIntosh went and interviewed like the washwoman and the midwife and the soldiers, and we did the cannon firings, and the Native Americans were very, very good about showing how they caught the fish, the ways they trapped the animals. And the muleteer was a wonderful interview, but these guys are all experts in their little field, and they reenact all over the country. Even some of them have been to Mount Vernon and been reenactors there. So we were able to use all those different interviews as part of our videos to put into our videos.
So they have soldiers at the fort, tradesmen at the fort, women at the fort, and
soldiers
and Native Americans at the fort. So it covers, basically every form of existence. And Beaver County and the city of Beaver have a lot to be proud of because this is the home of the U.S. Army. Right. When George Washington, when the war ended, the Revolutionary War, he didn't want a national army. He felt that the states should have their own militia, but he wanted a standing regiment just in case, and that's what happened with. Most of them came from Eastern PA, Judee, I think, right?
Throughout Pennsylvania,
right?
They were the Pennsylvania contingent, yeah.
And then they came to Fort Pitt, and then they were sent up to, Fort McIntosh, which was supposed to be the first of a line of forts to sort of, defend the frontier. So we wanted to make sure that Beaver and Beaver County were well represented in America 250. So
that's awesome. Yeah. So the second one basically is kind of like what life was like back then.
Yeah, and it's a series of 4 of them that we go through.
Okay.
Yeah, and then Robert Morris is doing one in kind for us, and it's basically going to be on the history. We have seen the script there; it's in production, and it's basically the history of Fort McIntosh, and it will talk about the treaty a little bit, what that meant to the westward expansion, and the First Regiment. So those are the important things that came out of
And Judee, you
Fort
might want to
McIntosh.
talk about the lesson plans because that's the critical part of getting them networked.
We did with each of these videos, and there's 5 of them that we have done.
Okay.
We did lesson plans for the teachers to
that's
follow
cool.
through, and we're just finding out that we need to get them embedded into a PowerPoint and into Google Drive. So I think I found someone to help us do that because most of us are retired, and retired teachers don't know about the new way to do, the lesson plans digitally.
Right.
So we're working on that to get that.
And the videos will be available also for visitors at the museum in the coming future.
Yes. And for people coming in on tour, kids coming in on tour to the museum, they've asked to show the videos and to give the lesson plans to homeschoolers and cyber schoolers and, whoever would like to have them besides the teachers in the public school.
So we talked about the first 2 videos. Tell us about the other 3.
The first, okay, well,
Is that how the whole series goes?
The dig is one on its own.
Okay,
and the next
other
4 are
they're
a
all
series.
Gotcha.
They're individual movies, but they are part of a series about life at Fort McIntosh.
Okay.
Yep.
So, living series.
Want to talk about them individually there?
Well, we can, but we sort of did. Okay, well, we start with the soldiers at the fort.
Okay.
We did Bracken Burns, our General McIntosh, was in uniform, which the uniform is authentic. We went through a lot of painstaking months to get, his measurements and to get it made by a company in Philadelphia called Godwin's. And they do a lot of reenactor uniforms. So we were very happy to get that and to get him in dress, which is a job, getting him dressed with a wool suit in 90-degree temperatures.
I'm sure, yeah.
That was a big deal.
And you had the regiment, right?
But he directed the regiment. He marched with the regiment, and they shot off the cannon. He went through the explanation of how to shoot off the cannon and what went through, who did what with the cannon. And, just basically talked about the rations of the food. We have a man who talks about the militia, and because the militia was very important to the Continental Army in that era, and they were volunteers, but they had to bring their own muskets and their own rifles, and he talks about that in the movie. So, and the lady who talks about the rations, she makes it really, that they really struggled for food back then, and they had to live off the land. So that's the soldiers.
Okay.
The Native Americans, they are all in their dress, and they talk about making fish traps, about drying their fish. And it was interesting, the one talked about putting them in their attic in the wintertime to dry because you didn't want them to get around the heat too much because they would get moldy and funny. So that was interesting.
And these were descendants of Native Americans.
These are descendants of Native Americans, most of them.
Okay.
And we had a lady there, a Native American woman, who talked about the wampum belts, the peace belts, and showed the Iroquois peace belt, the wampum belt. We had a gentleman show about trapping an animal, the dead trap of an animal, and he went through the explanation, but also demonstration of it, which was interesting. But they were very good. They had tanned hides, and they were showing, and they were talking about how they interacted with the soldiers at the fort. And then the next one was the tradesmen at the fort. And those were mostly people like the blacksmith who worked in the fort, but off the fort too, did work for the settlers that were around. And the muleteer, which I talked about before, was a very interesting character. He talked about buffalo being on the Ohio River.
Oh, wow.
And how they were able to use the buffalo, to capture the buffalo and use them for a food source. And he talked about how he helped move the army and their gear. Who else was? Oh, we had a beekeeper, talked about making honey, the value of the honey during that period of time. I'm trying to think who else was in that particular one. A candle maker, again, because of the honey and the wax.
So these reenactors, Frank, they're sort of on a circuit. There are a number of these events that are sequenced around, the region and the country. And Fort McIntosh Day is on their calendar every year. So
that's cool.
They're always there for that one. So.
And then the fourth one we did was the women at the fort. And we know there were women at the fort because the orderly book or the history book of the 1st Regiment had Josiah Hammer's wife present at the fort because she required a new oven be built for her when she came. She didn't last long, but she was there. Right. And in the artifacts at Little Beaver Museum, there is a needle and there's a thimble that they found in the artifacts. So we know there were women there. And so we wanted to, talk about what they did. And it's the midwife who was like the medical person for any ailment you had, plus delivering babies. And the Army paid for her to come to be there, to be as assistant to helping with the health of the men there. And then the washwoman, that was an interesting segment that she did, washing the clothes, especially the white shirts of the officers. And the herbalist, basically, the seamstresses, the ladies who sewed. And that's basically the 4 videos that were in the living series.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So Judee spent a lot of time in Washington, D.C. doing research. And in Philadelphia, the Museum of the American Revolution, who's actually run by a guy from Pittsburgh. And what's kind of exciting is that after America 250 has come and gone, the focus for the American Revolution Museum is what they call the War in the West. And that's us. We're the West.
Right.
Yeah.
So they're going to be spending a lot of time here for that.
So we send our videos to them so they can critique them too.
Yeah.
So how long are each of the videos?
They're about we have one that's 10 minutes long, but 7 to 10 minutes. We tried to keep it short for the attention span of the school kids. And that's really tells the story in that amount of time.
Now, are you going to show all 5 videos the night of the release?
I don't think so, because that would take up way too much time. I think we have sort of decided, and I should mention our committee members that decided this. Betsy Connor is our regent now, and she will be there. Louise Grant has done a lot of research on the women at the fort. And I do want to mention her because there's another project we have done, and I'll talk about that after we go through this, after the ladies. Peggy McKean has been very helpful in doing the dig because she knew Professor Fitzgibbon. Karen Coates is the educator who did all the lesson plans and was very helpful in getting release forms signed and everything else. And Deanna Jacobs, who was our regent, who was the one who came to me and said, would you be on the 250 chairperson of the 250 committee? And I, of course, said I couldn't say no. I said, okay. She's been very vital in doing some of the techie stuff. She did the invitation. So she's been and she's a lawyer, so she's helped with the legal side of things and getting these taken care of. So those are the committee members, and they all sort of decided that we are going to show the dig because we feel that's probably the most important one, and because the museum is really working with the Baker Company and working on the artifacts, we decided we wanted to show that one for sure. And the Native American ones we found to be very enlightening and very learning curve for us. So we thought about that one. And the women, we love the women at the fort.
Absolutely.
They did a great job.
Well, tell us so how have you guys started promoting all this and getting along and moving along with getting the videos out there?
Well, we did the YouTube channel, NSDAR, Fort McIntosh NSDAR is the name of the YouTube channel. And we've had quite a few plays, quite a few hits on that. A lot of social media. We have the DAR, we were able to get a grant from them because this is a community project we're doing with this party, is opening up to the public, and they felt that it was a very good project, and so they gave us a grant to help fund our party. So we had to put on to the National DAR website the invitation and to explain what it was all about. So 1776 Comes to Beaver County is listed on their event calendar at National, which goes to every chapter in the country. And then we are, of course, a member of the state of Pennsylvania DAR, which the conference is coming up next week in Valley Forge. And we have what we call an e-blast that comes out every week for the Pennsylvania Daughters. And we advertised in there with a picture of our invitation. And that's basically locally, we've been just sending out some postal mails to the schools, but mostly through social media.
And we'll be advertising on your stations.
Yeah.
From here on.
Okay.
Judee, you might want to talk about what your first project was, which was your blog.
Well, yeah, that's what I said. We can talk about that. There's other things we have done besides the videos to promote 250.
Okay.
While we were working on the videos, which took a lot of time, we started working on the videos in 2022, but there were other things that we wanted to do. And one of them was we had a guy help us set up a Facebook page and set up what's called Fort McIntosh Salutes. It's Parade of Patriots. And each patriot in our chapter, and we have quite a few of them, is represented every Friday on a post on our Facebook page about their life and how they served in the military or in the Revolutionary War, which not everyone was military. Some paid taxes, some gave food, gave supplies to the Army as they came through their particular area. And the one I'm writing about this week was a driver and a butcherer, a drover and a butcherer for the Army in Virginia.
Okay.
So we like to tell the story about each of the patriots that we descend from in our chapter. And we started this in August of 2024, and we will continue till December of 26 because we have enough patriots for like the 2.5 years to cover that period of time.
One each week?
Yeah, one each week.
So where are you putting these blogs at?
Facebook.
They're on Facebook page. Okay. They have over 300 followers, which is great.
Yeah.
And the plan is when this is done, when they run out of patriots, we're going to compile them into a book. We've been working with Facebook on that.
Okay.
So anyway,
all right.
But
all right. The last couple minutes we have recap the. When we're going to have the release party, that's going to be and how people can get more information.
Okay, the release party is May 14th, and it's at the Carnegie Free Library in Beaver Falls. It's a Thursday. It's from 4 to 7 p.m. We'll have light refreshments, and it's free to anyone who wants to attend. We just require an RSVP, and that goes to my email, Judee, Judee, Rooney, Rooney, 51 @gmail.com. And that, like I said, that's all we require is just an RSVP. And we will start probably about, 5 o'clock showing the 3 videos.
Okay.
And General McIntosh
will be there.
Oh, okay.
We were hoping for Phil Fitzgibbon to be there, but he'll be away. Just, a lot of different people that were involved with the production of this event for us.
And just word of mouth, you probably have over 30
I have close to 40 people signed up right now to come. So
And we have
hold 150.
Yeah, so we have a limited capacity. So
Okay.
we do encourage people to pre-register. So
All right. Sounds good. Anything else you can think of I didn't ask you about?
I might want to mention that, we did do a Patriot tree for Christmas time.
Okay.
And we did that a couple years ago. And it's this year, Brenda Applegate decided to put it at the Vickery Mansion all year. So it's on display there. And it has each ornament is a Patriot from our chapter. And we have them placed on the tree.
right.
Okay.
Judy's working with Senator Camera Bartolotta, who's a good friend. She knows she has descendants. So the local DAR chapter would be happy to help anybody that would like to see if they're, if they can trace their lineage back. So just contact.
How can they get a hold of you?
Well, I would go on to the dar.org website, and they will direct you to what chapter you are close to.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Well, appreciate you guys coming in today.
Good.
Thank you.
And coming up next, we'll have news. You can listen to replay on Sunday morning at 11:30 here on Beaver County Radio. That's it for this week's Best of Beaver County.
Honey, I found the perfect place for my parents and us.
Where?
St. Barnabas. For us, the Woodlands Carriage Home Community. And for my parents, condominium-style living at the Village. My folks will love the Village.